Welcome everyone to the Multifamily Deal Structuring Monday. Today our guest is Colby Bowers. Colby is a full-time real estate investor and co-founder of Veteran Pride Investment Group LLC. He has been investing in real estate since 2001 and understands a great investment deal when he sees one. He has managed numerous fix and flips, a portfolio of single-family rentals, as well as been a private note lender. In the last year, he has acquired over 500 rental units and expanded his company into 5 states. Colby has a passion for helping people to safely invest in real estate. He loves real estate because of the controllability of your inputs and outputs, risk aversion, and tax incentives. He also served 23 years of distinguished military service as a senior executive managing facilities and projects in multiple states, multi-million-dollar budgets, and hundreds of enlisted Air Force members. He has been featured in multiple podcasts like Podcast for Patriots, Ask Me How I Know, and From Military to Millionaire. Colby shows no signs of stopping anytime soon and is aggressively partnering with trusted professionals nationwide in order to acquire an additional 500 units by 2021. Here's the interview. Hi, Colby. Welcome to the Multifamily Deal Structuring Monday, where we will discuss all about your first GP multifamily transaction. Thank you for joining us here in the show.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure. So happy to be here, and hopefully, I can impart some wisdom to your audience.
Yeah, thanks. Then, let's start with telling us about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm in my second career. Multifamily investing. Retired from the military after 23 years. Realized the corporate world just wasn't for me and fell in love with real estate. And I'd been doing real estate while I was on active duty, single family, doing some fix and flips. And it was all right, but I realized it was a lot of work. And once I retired and got a little bit more education, I realized, hey, multifamily is the way to go. If I'm going to do as much work as I am with the single family, I can do the same amount of work with less stress and buy, 10 or 15 units or more for the same amount of work and effort. So that's what I did, and did education, and it's been a wild ride for the last couple of years.
Oh, that's good. Then, prior to multifamily, did you have any kind of rentals or single family experience?
Yeah, very little. Like I said, when I was on active duty, I was I bought some single family homes. Really, kind of every place I got stationed, I'd buy a house or two. And I had up to 10 rentals at one time. I was even trying to self-manage 4 of them and deploying and, doing a full-time job. And that's when I really learned the value of property management. And, you're not losing 8 to 10%, you're gaining, 100% of your freedom. So you're not tied to your phone. You don't get phone calls at 2 a.m. You spend more time with your friends and family doing stuff you want, and somebody else handles all that. So yeah, I had up to 10 single family homes, survived the crash of 08, and learned a valuable lesson about diversification. Had all my properties were not in the same market. I had them spread out over multiple states, about 34 different states. And a couple of the ones, especially one, I had a house in New Jersey and a couple houses in Florida. And, those markets got hit pretty hard. But I had a couple houses in South Carolina and Georgia that just went flat and were still cash flowing. So I got to where I had to reduce rents in one location and go without renters for, extended periods of time. I was able to diversify and move funds around and did not lose any of the properties. So, I do that now on my multifamily. Kind of take that same mindset is we focus on 1 or 2 markets. That's where we focus on deals, procuring them and bringing investors in. And then we actually invest a lot of our proceeds in other people's deals in other parts of the country. So kind of keep that diversification out there.
Yep. Then, where are you currently located?
So we just moved to Steamboat Springs, Colorado, a little over a year ago.
Okay,
no.
Colorado. Yeah.
Love
Then,
it.
Yeah. So how did you end up in multifamily, coming from, let's say, I know you have some single family rentals background. What triggered the move to the multifamily?
I wanted to go on to bigger things and had no idea. I was listening to a lot of podcasts, about how easy it is to do a syndication and get into multifamily, and so that was very intriguing. Folks that were, the scalability to be, and everyone was saying that the amount of time and effort that goes into multifamily is about the same as single family. But now you have scalability. So instead of having one home, with one roof and one exterior, one unit that's 100% occupied or 100% vacant, you buy a 10 unit and you still have that one roof, one exterior. But if somebody moves out, now you're at 90% and you can still pay your bills. So, that was very appealing, but I still had no way of doing it or no understanding of how to get into it. And would try to educate myself, went to, listening to those podcasts and such, but, it still wasn't what I needed. I'm a very tactile learner. So I'm like, all right, how do you peel back this onion? What does that deal structure look like? Because everybody, they talk about, there's different ways that you can set up a syndication, different ways you can bring investors, but nobody really broke it down. And I was still under the impression that you had to have a lot of money to get into multifamily. And so my thing was, I need to build a big portfolio of single family homes. That way I can start selling them off or cash flowing to build a nest egg to get into, multifamily. And it actually wasn't until about 2 years ago, I went to a boot camp, and for multifamily, there's about 500 other investors, and it was a very good program. And what was great about it is it really peeled back, it opened the door. I got to peek behind the curtains, if you will, and see is like, oh, that's a syndication. So that's one of the ways you can structure it. And it's like, oh, you don't have to have this big pocketbook of money. You just need to go find somebody that does and partner with them, align yourself, and work a deal together. So, the light bulb really went off because I got to really, dive into it, and, it's just been off to the races. I've been just building my network of other investors, really just spending time, money, and energy on education. I think that's probably the most important thing to anybody that wants to get into something new to them, especially multifamily, is educate yourself. Single families are great. There's typically about 6 figures. You got 1 comma. When you get into multifamily, you start getting 2 or 3 commas, and that extra zero is quite intimidating. Not only on the fact of, hey, buying a property, but if you screw up, that's a pretty expensive screw up. And to be a fiduciary of investors' money, you need to be on your game. So, and that's what we've really been doing for the last few years, is just upping our game and aligning ourselves with the top people in the industry. So,
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah, that's a good segue now to the next question. Is like, any limiting belief when you were starting that you have, and how did you overcome it to get to your first deal?
Yeah, I think the biggest one I kind of already mentioned was, the belief that I had to have a bunch of money, myself. So once I realized that wasn't the case, it opened a lot of opportunities. And then the other thing was, I'm like, man, I'm in my I'm in my early 40s, and, can I, and I've already did 20 plus years in one job. This is like, I was a medic in the military, and which, you don't deal, you deal with patients and stuff, but you don't deal with real estate. So this is something, is 180 degrees different than what I knew, at this level, and so that was kind of my limiting belief was, can I do this? And it goes back to is aligning myself with some good mentors that helped me change my mindset of, yes, you can do anything you can put your mind to. Making introductions, going out and shaking hands. Some of these, they helped with making investor introductions. hey, here's somebody, and that was great. So that just helped open the door, and I got to practice my elevator speech and delivery, and just been able to refine it. Now it's instead of sounding forced, I can have a conversation, and it it just rolls off the tongue, because I'm a lot more confident in what I'm doing, especially now in my team as well.
Correct. Yeah, I think to our listeners, so like that's the importance of like networking and also partnering, because let's say especially like for those who are starting up then doesn't have enough money, you need to partner yourself with those people that has capital, and also think of also that what value you can bring to that person. Always think from that point of view.
Yeah, there's a good quote. I don't know who said. I probably need to look at it or look it up. But somebody has said it is, you can go fast alone, but you can go far together. And there's a lot of truth to that. I was going fast nowhere by myself.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until probably about a year and a half ago, I really started building a team. So yeah, I have my own company, and it's me and my partner, but there's 5 of us now. So as this team, different companies, but we come together and we look at deals, because each of us has our strengths. Numbers is not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really good at this. I can talk all day long, but I call it public school education, and so math and analysis sheets and stuff. I can do it, but it's definitely not something I like to do. I went out and aligned myself with somebody that's what they do. That's what they like to do. They don't like making phone calls, but they like doing the analyzer. Great, right? So their strength is my weakness. Their weakness is my strength. And it's great. And we just started bringing some other folks that help shore up each of our weaknesses. And, we feel that we're unstoppable. We went from 0. My partner, we have 526 units.
Nice.
And we're growing, even during COVID, we're still sourcing deals. Got one under contract. You remember talking about before we jumped on.
Yeah.
Which is different from the last time we talked. I had a different one under contract. This is totally different, So
yeah, that's nice.
I mean, they're still out there.
Yep. And I think also that's one key point also that you mentioned about the strengths and weaknesses. You need to build a team that kind of have different strengths and weaknesses, so that you can, it's not like all of you are good in acquisitions, then no one will be focusing on the investor relations or even operation management. So it should be a balance of all, at least the 3: acquisition, raising capital, and operations, who will manage, basically good at management of the property.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so like everybody on my team,
Yes.
knows how to do all parts, but we don't do all parts well. So, and we split it up just that way, if I get sick, or, I have my family, and so I need to do that, work-life balance. If I need to go on take the family on a camping trip, and I'm going to be out of cell signal, and I can't make phone calls, somebody else on my team can pick that up. It's not their strength, but they can still step in.
Yep.
And same thing is, I can still go in and analyze deals. It's not my strength. I go in and I definitely make sure that somebody else on my team double checks my work. But yeah, it's so everyone's kind of a jack of all trades, but yeah, but we really try to specialize in, in where we best perform for the team.
Yeah. Okay, then I think let's jump into your first deal. What's the source of this first deal? Is it a broker?
Yeah, so I guess I'll talk about like the first deal that I really did myself, my partner and I, because we did a number of deals to learn. We were limited partners. We helped raise some money, but I think what was really my biggest accomplishment is still starting is my partner and I, we bought a 15 unit ourselves. So we sourced it and found it on LoopNet, right? Everyone's like, oh, you're not going to find deals on LoopNet. It's not true. You just got to look. This one had been sitting on there a while. It was 15 units, so it was on the smaller side. So it was getting overlooked. And we reached out and got all the financials and started looking into it. And we're like, man, this is it's a good property. It was a B-class property that was in C-class condition with C- tenants. And when we got, we were able to get the rent roll and the T12. And that was one good thing about working with the broker is they had all of this stuff readily available. So we didn't have to, sometimes there's some challenges if you're working direct to seller is, I've underwritten a deal, one of my partners underwrote a deal that we got the operating expenses on notebook paper. So we actually got a nice T12 on an Excel spreadsheet with the rent roll. Everything was current, and it made it was very easy to plug and play into our analyzer. And what we really stood out is it was marketed as a C-class property, but it was a B-class for the age and for the location. And then once we got the T12, trailing 12 months of financials, realized that the repairs and maintenance were extremely low. Mm-hmm. And then also when we looked at the rent roll, another big thing that stood out is rents were about $150 to $300 under market rent. And so, those stood out as opportunities, and why. And so, through that, we reaching out with the broker, we got more of the story of the property. And it's like, this guy bought this property. He had it for like 7 or 8 years. It was cash flowing nicely. He was kind of on the cheap side. So he was using third-party property management, but he wasn't letting them go through and, keep based a lot of deferred maintenance. So he was not cutting checks for a lot of the maintenance stuff that needed to be done. He was just for the bare minimum or emergency stuff. So, and that's what allowed a lower class of tenant because they couldn't charge, market rent. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how we found it. And I'll kind of take, with our first deal is I don't like competition. So this deal is actually in Arkansas. So I live in Colorado, and this is in Northwest Arkansas, Fayetteville. So, it's a tertiary market, but it gets overlooked. It's not getting as overlooked as much now. I don't know. It's because I keep doing little interviews like this and talking about my little honey hole. But yeah, there's a lot more investors are jumping into Northwest Arkansas due to the demographics and how good that market is, because it has Walmart, JB Hunt, Tyson. It has 3 major Fortune 500 companies, and then there's 1,500 regional offices for other major chains in there, because that's Walmart's headquarters. So it's huge. And our University of Arkansas, each year for the last, I want to say 10 years, I'd have to double check my facts, but the University of Arkansas has been setting records for enrollment. I think at least 8 of the last 10 years. Oh, nice. And so the capacity is there's a large housing demand, and the economics and demographics they're on par with some areas like Dallas and Denver. Mm-hmm. Yep. So we honed in on it and jumping in.
Yeah, nice. So at least this is a 15 units, Class C. Then what the area is Fayetteville, Arkansas, or?
It is. Yep. This property is less than a mile from the University of Arkansas.
Okay.
Then, right on the bus line. So I can have students or faculty that live at the apartment complex, and they can catch the free bus to anywhere on the campus. They could even walk there if they wanted to.
Okay. Then regarding the T12 and rent roll, did you recall like any red flags aside from the deferred maintenance?
Not really. We honed in on that. And once we realized that it was a management issue and lack of pay, that was really all we needed to want to jump in and go into our due diligence. Because and during that, because we had already, I don't remember there being any other big flags. I just saw those 2, and that was enough to go, hey, this is a good opportunity. And then from there, it was more of just digging in and building that team on the ground, making sure I had the right property management. I sent over all the financials and stuff to the property management company I was going to use, and got their feedback. And then I set up the inspection. And so, so no, outside of that, and then once I got there, it got even better when we did the due diligence piece.
Yeah. What was the original asking price for this property?
Yeah. If I remember correctly, I want to say it was like around 1.9 and some change.
Okay. Then you were able to get it for how much?
Yeah. After going through due diligence and having the inspection report and stuff. So I say due diligence. Sorry, let me back up. Before we even put an offer, I had an opportunity to go and walk the property.
Okay.
So that was a huge help. And then with the property manager as well. So that worked out. So I was able to really go back and fine tune our numbers and gave me a lot more confidence. But we ended up purchasing the property once we went to contract was for 1.675.
1.67. Okay. That's nice. Then, what were the economic vacancy when you bought it, like on this?
Yeah. So when we bought it, it was actually 0 because the rents were so low, and it was 100%. It was 100% occupied. But when it's that close. I mean, it's in a great location, and rents are 150 plus under market. It was And that was actually, and I kind of go back, that was another, not a red flag, but just a little bit of an indicator. If you got something that's 100% and you have long-term tenants in there and you notice that rents haven't been going up, that's usually an indicator that, hey, rents aren't high enough. That means that the property management either isn't allowed, or the owners, whatever the case may be, isn't maybe aggressive enough. So if you got something with 100%, that means rents still have a way to go. So I always look at that suspect. If they're 100%, I'm like, okay, how low are rents and how much can we potentially go up?
Yeah. I think I heard it from someone that say if you have a high occupancy, then it's kind of try to play around with maybe you can bump up the rent in some units because you have full capacity anyway. You have the leverage of like extra money kind of to hit some vacancy. That's
absolutely.
Okay. Then this financing, this one is you and your partner. So was it like a bank loan or it's all cash? How did the financing?
Oh, I wish it was all cash. No, it's his bank. We ended up getting a bridge loan, and then instead of bringing investors in, like equity investors for like a JV, we actually had a great relationship with, and he's our first investor. Did debt equity or debt investment. So basically, it's like a hard money loan. Helped us get with the down payment.
Okay.
And then we had secured a non-recourse bridge loan through a national lending company called CoreVest. Rates were a little bit high, but it was interest only. So, and we knew that we were going in, and we had a renovation budget of $300,000, and we'd actually worked that into the loan. The bridge loan is they covered 100% of the capex for renovations.
Yeah.
So going in, it was great because the investors. So basically, it was great because it's like it's ours. It's small, but it's kind of cool to say, hey, this is something that I own. Even though it's the smallest property we own, but it's something that we can actually say is ours. And we knew it was going to be some heavy lifting because, like I said, it was it was in C-class condition, and so we actually had to go in and we put. COVID this year kind of slowed things down because we just purchased this last year, and we were rocking and rolling at the beginning of the year, and then COVID hit. So of course, just like everybody else, we put the brakes on because we didn't want to have vacancies and updated nice new rental units and not be able to get tenants in there. So we played around with that for a few months, and then kind of did a wait and see, and then realized, okay, our market is not getting hit hard. We're still having high collections. I think out of our 15 tenants, we only had one that had trouble paying.
Okay. Oh, that's at least that's
So,
nice.
knock on wood. But they were eventually able to catch up. So there's some state assistance and some other stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
they ended up getting caught up. And then there was another tenant that knew that they weren't going to be able to make rent, and so they asked to move out, and we let them out of their lease early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So and then
that's nice.
yeah, so it just, I mean, we have great tenants,
Yeah,
but
which
we
is
went in. So right now we've 50% renovation on it. We've increased the value of the property by, I think we're guesstimating right now, just based off NOI and the current market, is we increased property value by about 600,000.
mm-hmm.
And then next spring, we're actually holding off right now to see what COVID does. And then wintertime is a little bit more challenging, especially right now. Materials is difficult to get building
Yeah.
materials shipped in. And then with uncertainty of weather, we're just like, you know what, we're going to pause. We have 100% occupancy. We're just going to stabilize right now. And then we'll wait until springtime, and we'll see, if this vaccine, we'll kind of see what the market and stuff
Yeah,
does.
yeah. Yeah, and also the cost right now is skyrocketing in terms of wood and stuff, right? Everything.
Yeah. Prices have gone up a little bit. So, that had another, that played a little bit of a part. But it wasn't a huge decision maker. It was more of just let's be a little cautious.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And in wintertime is also a little bit harder to get tenants in a lot of markets. So
Yeah. Yes.
yeah.
Then yeah, for this one, so how much was what was this bridge loan? Is it like an 80% kind of purchase price and they cover the renovation? Or
Exactly. So yeah, so so I want to say our the loan was for like 1.3, and then we had up to 300,000 we could put.
okay. So this 1.3, then so you need the money around 300,000, then they cover the renovation.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Then how much was the loan interest? I know like it's a kind of a hard money rate.
Yeah, it was higher. So it was it's 7%.
7%. Okay. Then how long? I mean, how many years did you have this loan? I think
So it's actually we're refinancing it right now. So
okay.
it was
One year.
like I said, non-recourse, interest only for 12 months, amortized over 30 years.
Okay.
And so and we did everything. We've increased the value, so we're going back, and we're not doing a full cash out refinance. We're just refinancing to pay off our debt investor.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's actually our monthly with principal and interest, because I think we're going to get the new loan is looking to be about 3.75% on a 25-year amortization, and it's 10 years fixed with no prepayment.
Oh, nice.
Which is nice. And so it's going to lower our monthly payments by about $4,000 a month.
Okay. By the way, like this one, is it like an agency or is it just a bank or a credit union?
It's like a credit union.
Credit union, yeah. Okay, that's nice. Then think so. You mentioned about that debt investor. So how much percentage are you paying the debt investor? So what's the interest?
Yeah, we're paying, that one's a little higher, but it's we're paying 10%.
10%. Okay.
But it's interest only.
Oh.
So and what's nice about it is they have not requested. So basically, we haven't paid them at all. We haven't had to. So they've been, we kept them in the loop of the whole plan.
Mm-hmm.
So when we go to refinance, they're going to get their principal back and all the interest.
Interest 10%. Yeah, as long as I guess like the annual, let's say if it's already been a year, then they get 10% of their money on top of their money back. Yeah, yep, that's
good. And like I said, we have enough to this refinance with everything with that value add is it's the renovations, plus paying out everything's everything's covered in a new loan. Mm-hmm. And we're paying less. So that's $4,000 that's going to our NOI basically now.
Yeah.
That we didn't have before.
Yep.
So
That's
we're
good.
excited.
Yeah, that's good. At least. Then, so I guess your business plan here is like to just renovate, then lease. I mean, increase the rent of the property and the value, but at least hold off right now because of the COVID.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Right now. Yeah. Right now it's just stabilization for the next 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we'll do is, so my partner, we're holding on to this long term. We're going to hold on to this 10 plus years.
Oh,
So
nice.
that's why we got the longer term, because it's just ours. And so we wanted to cash flow.
Yep.
You know, we kind of call it like a legacy property, you know, but it's something that we plan on holding, you know, probably in 20 years, we'll still own this property.
Yeah. That's nice. Then, so this one is it's kind of so JV with a twist of like some debt investors, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why you call it, because
Yeah.
I mean it's really it's almost like it's just a straight up purchase,
Yep.
because way it's we own it, and we just
Correct.
have
Yeah.
a
You're
promissory
the
note
partner.
with the debt investor.
Yep.
And then with the bridge loan. So
Yeah.
it was pretty straightforward, and which saved on quite a bit of money with with our attorney, our real estate attorney.
Okay. Yeah. That's good. Then I think you already did touch some of the due diligence. Anything else that you learned through the due diligence process on this property?
Yes. So due diligence is always an eye opener. I'm a 100% believer in to walk 100% of your units. It doesn't matter if you have 10 units, you know, if you're purchasing 10 units or 300 units.
Mm-hmm.
Have somebody in the ownership, so either yourself or somebody on a team that you trust, walk all the units. You know, so there's some folks out there that'll do just like 10%, maybe 50%, you know, get a SPAC lane, you know, and that'll be the average. And the reason I point that out is, you know, because all the pictures and stuff that we were receiving before we did our walkthrough of all the units were of the nicer units.
Mm-hmm.
So when we got to get in, you know, when we actually went in there, you know, that's when I realized, hey, we have a hoarder. And because they're a hoarder, I mean, you literally could not walk into the unit. There's a roach infestation.
Wow.
So if you have a roach infestation in one unit, chances are the units on both sides are going to have roaches as well.
Yes.
So that was one thing that we found. But if we didn't do our due diligence, you know, a thorough due diligence, then you know, we would have missed that. And I'd say probably another a tidbit like is when you're doing your walkthrough and your due diligence. So we do our walkthrough and our inspection on the same day, and either that same day or the next day we have our contractors on site. And what I like to do is I walk around with my inspector. So by the end of a property, I know my inspector's kids' names, where they go to school. I've even had one that's asked for one of my business card because he wants to invest in a future deal. So you're always increasing the network, right? You're always closing.
Nice.
But what's great, you know, is when you get that inspection report, no matter how thorough it is, it's not going to capture 100%. And what I mean by that is, you know, I'd go through and the inspector would be like, hey, this is not going to go into the report because it's not an issue, but this may become a problem. Like this hot water heater may become a problem in the future, or this, you know, electrical outlet or whatever you know, they point out is going, hey, you're going to have, you know, you need to keep an eye on this. Mm-hmm. You know, that stuff you're not going to get from a report. So that's why I'm always with the inspector. If we have multiple inspectors, we did one property a couple months back where we had 2 inspectors. And then so 2 people from the team, I went with one, partner went with she went with the other guy. And that way we still did 100%. You know, we just split it up. And so we got that information, and you're going to get a lot more information on a property, and you're going to get a better feel for it. Mm-hmm. You know, how does the property feel? What's the bones of it? So that's just me, but I suggest everybody do that. Crawl in. You know, you saw pictures of me. I've crawled into
the space.
in the crawl spaces, with good shoes and everything. I'll get in there. It's yeah, I'm not afraid. I'll crawl in this. I'll get dirty.
Yeah, that's nice. Like I know, I remember like in that picture, everyone doesn't want to, so you're the only one,
Yeah,
which is
nobody else
really
on the
good.
team. They're like, and even the inspector's like, I don't know if I can fit in there. And I'm like, here, hold my jacket, you know. And I got my phone light, and I went in, and I was looking, you know, you know a little bit of history on that property, but you know, I was looking for heroin needles and stuff
Oh
like
yeah,
that in the
careful
crawl
with that.
space, and um, yeah, so that was my biggest fear under there. That, and you know, coming face to face with a raccoon. So
Oh,
neither
I
of those
see.
happened, so it was good.
Yep. That sounds good. Then I think going out to the next section. I think yeah, we'll skip the capital raise, or I guess we can probably touch base a little bit, like how did you get these debt investors? Is it through an existing relationships or?
I did. Yeah, met the investor at a real estate conference.
Mhm.
Um, just struck up a conversation. What was also great is he's um, a insurance broker
No.
for commercial properties. So that's kind of how we hit it off. And he's from California, but he has an interest in like the Midwest. And we started talking about Arkansas, and he's like, you know, he had an interest in Arkansas. He's like, I don't know anybody else that has an interest in Arkansas. And I'm like, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
I'm there. So that's kind of how that relationship started, and just kept in contact, let him know what we were doing. And when this deal popped up, he was the first one I called.
Oh,
And I was
nice.
like, hey, you know, here's what we have. Here's our business plan. You know, and this is our first deal together. So, you know, it wasn't like, you know, even though we had been talking and building this relationship for almost a year at this point, it took about 2 to 3 weeks of,
Mhm.
you know, going over our business plan. Here's what we're going to do. But, you know, basically is just reassuring him that we're not going to lose his money,
Yes, yeah.
which is understand. You know, I get that,
Yep.
you know, because we didn't have, um, you know, we didn't, again, we still don't have a huge track record. Yeah, 500 something units. The resume looks good, but you know, there's operators out there have 12,000 plus units. You know,
Mhm.
and almost $1 billion in assets. You know, we're not quite there, so we're still, you know, we're still building that up, um, and we made it happen. Um,
Nice.
so yeah, so that was a good, you know, good thing about, you know, when you establish relationships, you know, keep that dialogue open. You know, just don't meet somebody at a conference, send them one or two emails, and then never follow up.
Yeah.
You know, sending out newsletters, just keeping yourself top of mind with these potential investors is critical.
Yeah. Totally agree. Yeah. I think you should also keep in touch on those people that you meet. Even like because I know usually in conferences like you just exchange business cards, but most of the time people doesn't follow up. You don't call back them or don't reach out. You just have the business card probably sitting around there in your office or somewhere basically. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, you get home. I mean, I'll leave these conferences, like you're saying. I'll have a stack of
Yeah.
cards, and you know, by the end of the 3 days, you know, you've shook so many hands and talked to so many, you don't remember all the cards. So what I started doing, is a good tidbit for your audience, is after I talk to somebody, I get their card. As soon as I walk away, I always keep a pen in my pocket, and then I'll
Mhm.
write notes on their card to help me remember. You know, and it
Oh,
could be
that's
of
good.
like, this was the tall dude with long hair, you know, that had an interest in, you know, bass fishing in Lake Okeechobee. That, because I'm from Florida originally. You know, something to go. Okay, I can tie that card. And
Yeah.
then what I also try to do is at the end of that day, when I go back to my hotel room, is try to just shoot off a quick email
Mhm.
to all those contacts. Is I'll take like an hour, and all they do is like cut and paste, same email, just put it all, you know, and just type in everyone's saying, hey, it was really great meeting you today. I'd like to keep in contact. Let's, here maybe in the next week or two, can we set up a phone call?
Mhm. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. Oh, yeah,
And
that's
then
a good.
just build it up and from there. So
Yeah, great advice. Especially like for those people who are yeah, exchanging business cards, and make sure also, yeah, to take note, because but when you come back after that conference, as you say, like, you will not remember all of them
Right.
that you shook hands. Yeah. Yeah. Then going to the next section is the closing. Around how much was the closing cost, if you remember, for this?
This one, it wasn't so bad. I want to say it was a little over 20,000 total.
Okay. 20,000.
And that's including the title company, attorney fees. Um, so
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Then how long did it take, like from the contract to closing?
Yeah. So this one took longer than it should have. So it took this one it took 71 days.
71.
And I just want to point out it wasn't my fault.
No, but I think it's still not bad. Like, so 71 days, think of it like just 2 months.
Yeah, you know, and so a lot of it is so this so and like I said, so I was very on top of trying to you know, with communication with the lender. So and with my attorney, get him all the, you know, because they're gonna want you know, uh, your personal financial statements, your credit history, your real estate schedule, you know, of real estate owned, all this paperwork. And this is the first time that this lender had operated in this part of Arkansas, and actually in Arkansas as a whole. So that created a little bit of a unique challenge. They were authorized, they're licensed to go there, but because they didn't have somebody very familiar with it, that delayed a lot of a lot of the process. And right as we were up to closing, and again, I say it wasn't my fault because I was very adamant and open with the lenders, my attorney, the sellers, and the brokers, keeping them abreast of what's going on. And the lender actually, they forgot, so they didn't, they forgot to reschedule the appraisal. So they had an appraisal set up. Then they realized that it was a potential conflict of interest because the appraisal company was associated very remotely with the seller's broker.
Oh, okay.
And then, so the person that they canceled it, but they never went back and rescheduled it.
Oh, so
And they didn't realize until 3 days before closing.
Oh, yeah, and it takes time for the appraisal to return. Yeah.
It took 2 weeks, and I thought I was going to lose my EMD and everything. But fortunately, through my attorney and this, I learned another important lesson is making sure that and I did have it in there. But you know, with so much that goes into a purchase sales agreement, I'm always adamant now is I make sure there's one little sentence in there. Extension that is not the fault of the seller. If it's the lender, is an automatic. So that's what helped. And I had a good enough relationship with the broker seller and the seller at that point that the seller was willing to extend it out. They didn't have any issues with it and stuff, because it wasn't, you know, because we'd built that relationship. We were easy to work with.
Yep.
So, but yeah, something that should have only taken about 50 something days ended up taking 71.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's good. Okay, I guess we reached now the last portion of the show where I ask each guest this final 5 sizzling questions.
All right.
So the first question is, any lessons learned that you want to share from deal analysis, due diligence, and all the aspects of this deal?
Yeah, I'd say this one, we didn't really touch on it, but is really vetting out your property management. So my property management, I ended up after 6 months ended up replacing them. You know, they talked a good game. They were referred to me, but they weren't, multifamily wasn't their forte, or this niche of it. And so they weren't performing, and so they were kind of out of their element. So that was a definite lesson learned and a little bit of a setback, but yeah, so definitely vet multiple property managers. So yeah, property management. Because property management is probably your success or failure on a property.
Correct. Yeah, either we will make it or break it. Yep, that's agree. Then also, I think for our listeners too, whenever you're looking for your property management, you need to also know that if that property management is fit even to that number of units. Because
Yep.
some property management, let's say you have 50 units, but those property management company have only dealt with maybe single family, the duplex or quadplex, or even less than 10 units. So those are also might be like not a good fit. And
Yep.
also, I think the property management company that you will look for also needs to be, they have done already the business plan that you plan on on your property. That's really a must. Yep. Okay. Then the next question is any recommended books?
There's a lot. I read a lot of books. I think the last one that I read here most recently that had a big impact is Call Sign Chaos by retired General Mattis, former Secretary of Defense under Trump. Really focuses. What's great about it, it's a leadership book, and it really can resonate. A lot of his lessons learned can be utilized on the company side.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that one's, and we've actually restructured the way we do some of our processes by some of the recommendations from the book. So, and it's been a huge help.
Okay.
So it's a good one.
Yeah, nice. Then the third question is any recommended podcast or YouTube channel that you're listening to and would recommend?
Well, yours.
Oh, nice.
Right?
Yes. Yeah, I think for everyone, tune into the Multifamily Deal Structuring Monday. You will learn a lot.
Absolutely. No, I really like is Rod Cleef's Lifetime Cash Flow.
Oh yes, yep.
He's got a lot of great speakers on there, and I just like how he, that abundance mindset of his, kind of giving back and really teaching. So I think that's a really cool.
Yeah, I second to that podcast. Like I also listen to Rod Cleef's podcast. Then number 4, this is the time to promote yourself. So what's your acquisition criteria for multifamily, and location, number of units, class? And this is to let everyone know and reach out to you if they have any deals in those areas.
Absolutely. So my markets right now are Arkansas, so specifically Northwest Arkansas and parts of Little Rock, and then Indianapolis. And in my criteria, which everybody should have known and should know their own criteria and be able to spit it out, is I'm looking for 20 to 150 units, 1975 or newer. I avoid flat roofs if possible. And I'm looking for that Class C value add. So anything that's mom and pop owned, so I'm looking for mismanagement, deferred maintenance, stuff I can deal with value add. Mm-hmm. And if it fits those criteria, give me a call.
Yep. Then I think that's a segue to the last question. What's the best way to contact you?
The best way, I'm still a little old school, I guess, is email. So colby.bowers@veteranpride.org. And I'm on that thing 24/7, apparently, according to my wife. So she makes me shut my phone off, but I can still check emails. If I can't check my phone, I can find a computer. So I'll get back to people as quickly as I can.
Okay, that's nice. I will, and also I will put the acquisition criteria of Colby and his email address in the show notes. So thanks a lot, Colby, for your time. Really loved to have you here.
I appreciate it. Thanks again.
All right.